In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to practice regenerative agriculture at home with your own chicken flock. Now, one of the major differences between an industrial chicken house and my chicken house here is how their manure gets handled. So in an industrial chicken operation, that chicken manure is just going to get either flushed out with water or scraped out with a machine, taken away by a conveyor belt. But anyway, it's going to get piled up somewhere, maybe end up in a manure lagoon, sprayed thick on a field before being composted or mixed with any carbon. And what that's going to do is that's going to release a lot of nitrates into the air, nitrogen, instead of being bonded with carbon, which is what happens when you use a deep bedding system with straw or wood chips to bond to that nitrogen in the manure to capture it so you can use it for your garden at home or your lawn or whatever you want to do with it. In the industrial system, it's off-gassing into the air. That can cause acid rain. That can affect the water cycle. And if it doesn't off-gas into the air, well, it might run off of a field into a nearby creek or a stream, which eventually winds up in a river, which can eventually wind up in the ocean. Now, my backyard flock, or even a big flock, like what you would see at Polyface Farms in Virginia, you got to get carbon under them, and whether that's in the form of straw, leaves, wood chips, sawdust, whatever it is, you got to get carbon under them so when they poop, you have something to absorb the nitrogen and other nutrients in that manure. Otherwise, it's just going to off-gas or it's going to run off. Then you can compost it, either using the deep bedding system like I have, or piling it up and composting it. And what that's going to do is that's going to provide a great fertilizer source for your gardens. You don't really need to buy outside inputs when you have enough chickens to produce enough manure to make enough compost for your garden to help you build soil, which is one of the other ways you can practice regenerative agriculture at home, is by building the soil, supporting the soil structure, covering the soil, keeping it covered so it doesn't bake in the sun or get hammered by rain and compacted. Instead, you want to keep it covered with a mulch, either a living mulch of plants or compost or slightly composted animal bedding, but you want to keep the soil covered. What that's going to do is it's going to allow the soil microorganisms to thrive and flourish. It's going to give you a great soil structure that can hold a lot more water, holds nutrients, and makes them available for plants to take in. You're going to get a lot higher vegetable yields using this method. You're going to capture a lot more water, so you're not going to need to water as much, if at all. I didn't water at all except for once in August because I wanted to pump more production out of my tomatoes and we weren't getting rain, so I did water once then, but otherwise I didn't water just because the soil stays so moist. It always regulates the moisture when you add enough organic matter to it. You also want to eliminate tillage from the home garden and from your crop fields when possible. Now, the reason why is tillage breaks up the soil structure. It destroys the mycorrhizal fungi. It destroys basically their trails and paths through the soil. And these can act as extenders to your roots because they're going to go a lot farther than the roots are to find nutrients, and it's going to trade them to the plants in order to get sugar for itself from the plant. It's going to trade the plant nutrients. So you don't want to till because that disrupts the structure. Another thing you want to stay away from is excess chemical usage. You want to limit the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides that you use as much as possible, and chemical fertilizers like synthetic nitrogen. This is all possible with regenerative agriculture because when you are applying more organic matter to your soil, when you're using cover crops to grow your own nitrogen, and when you're not tilling, so less nutrients run out of the soil, it's very possible to use no fertilizer at all besides the compost or animal bedding that you apply to your soil. Also, you can cut down on the herbicides you'll need to use because when you do the no-till method, you keep the soil covered with some armor, soil armor is what they call it, then less weeds are going to be able to come up through that, especially the thicker that the soil covering is. Here we use our chicken bedding to cover the soil with armor, and that really cuts down on the amount of weeds that come up. Also, when you grow big healthy plants that are dense enough, that also shades out the soil, which means less weeds sprout to begin with. You'll also be able to use less pesticides when you convert to no-till, regenerative farming and gardening methods, because when plants are healthier and they have all of the micronutrients and macronutrients that they need, and there's healthy bacteria and fungi around them, they will actually get waxier leaves that are naturally harder for insects to pierce. Insects like aphids that would then suck the juices from your plant's leaves and stems. Now, when you limit your chemical usage, when you're using regenerative methods to protect the soil, to help build the soil, the water cycle is going to drastically improve. Rivers won't be being polluted as much, which leads to the ocean not being polluted as much, which means less fish kills, and just a much cleaner water cycle and air cycle overall. Now, the important thing with regenerative agriculture is to keep growing, to keep learning, trying new methods of integrating your livestock with your crop farming. That's how it's done in nature. You don't see plants just growing by themselves, never receiving any attention from animals or insects, never getting eaten, never getting trampled, never getting grazed off, never getting manure spread by their roots. So you definitely want to keep that in mind as you're moving forward, and I hope you enjoyed the video today. One more thing I almost forgot: don't grow it if you don't like to eat it. Grow what you like to eat. There's not much point in growing it regeneratively if you don't like to eat it. So grow what you like to eat. Growing it regeneratively will make it taste even better, make it better for the planet, make it better for you, make it better for your animals. If you'd like to learn more about regenerative agriculture and farming and gardening, I'd be honored to have you subscribe to the channel. Hit thumbs up on the video. If you have any more thoughts on what I've spoken on today, please let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from all of you.